Well, let's stay with education matters for the moment. So that story there, looking at the end of the exams and celebrations. Right now, the Democratic Alliance has requested the SA Human Rights Commission, the SAHRC, to intervene at Lwaphungu Secondary School. It's just outside Musina in Limpopo. Just a background on this, it comes after reports that almost 900 pupils are writing their exams under trees outside. Well, matric pupils are apparently writing theirs in 3 dilapidated mobile classrooms. So let's try and find out where we are on this. DA MPL Katlego Suzan Phala, very kind to joining us this evening. Katlego, thanks for your time on eNCA in South Africa tonight. So, I mean, I cannot imagine, I'm trying to put myself back when I wrote matric, and tell me if you agree. Matric was stressful enough all those years ago. We didn't have COVID-19, we didn't have blackouts, and I certainly was not writing my exams under trees. Where did this information come from?
Good evening to you and your viewers. We learned about this horrendous events that the learners are subjected to, especially during this time of their own exam, through media reports, whereby the chairperson of the SGB at Lwaphungu High School shared his frustration that they have tried for several times to engage the department to come and address the issues. And unfortunately, their cries fell on deaf ears. And today we find ourselves here whereby 900 learners are writing their matric exams under a tree. And we are talking of Musina. It is hot in that area. So you can imagine what these learners are going through.
I think it's difficult for anyone to imagine what these school learners are going through. Why are they outside under the trees? I understand the SAHRC, Katlego, are looking into it, but what, to your knowledge, why are they sitting outside under the trees? Where's the school buildings?
I mean, when you look at Limpopo, they are sitting at a 2 billion on backlog for maintenance of schools. Earlier on this year, I think it was around June, we had the same issue. It was a primary school, however, in the same area in Musina, whereby the occupational health and safety officer had to close the school. So it clearly shows that the Department of Education in Limpopo is failing to address the backlog of maintenance and new schools building. And when we look at the previous financial year, certainly the Department of Education in Limpopo returned or failed to utilize 523 million of its budget.
Now it comes in the issue once again that the DA and or the SAHRC are having to get involved. It almost beggars belief as to why it has to be escalated to another organisation before government will act. It doesn't say much about how government feels about their pupils writing matric exams.
I mean, you have an SGB who highlights clearly that they have been trying to engage the Department of Education and nothing has happened. Learners are now sitting under the tree, and hence why we are now involving the South African Human Rights Commission to come and intervene. In previous months, as the Democratic Alliance here in the province, there was also a school whereby they did not have enough mobile classes. We intervened. We also approached the Human Rights Commission, and we saw positive results. Hence why today we are still going under that route, because we have been engaging the Department of Education to try to assist them to address the backlog of maintenance and infrastructure within school. It has fell on deaf ears. I'm sure you do remember in the previous years, the former MEC also mentioned that she will be eradicating a pit toilet. Unfortunately, the NIMS report still states that Limpopo has more than 2,000 schools in the province whereby they are still utilizing a pit toilet. So when we talk about infrastructure, it is not only classrooms, but also sanitation in the schools.
If I am interpreting this correctly, based on what you're telling me, Katlego, the Limpopo Education Department has failed on 2 fronts. One is the constitutional right for basic and free education in our country. The other is basic human rights. Would my interpretation be correct?
That one is true. And the matter of school infrastructure, it is not only in mainstream schools, but also in special schools. And I mean, for the past few years, as the Democratic Alliance, we have been visiting special schools as well. And the Department of Education is not only violating that right, but also violating the rights of those with special needs to can provide a good infrastructure and good environment. So the education system in Limpopo, one can say it has collapsed from mainstream school and also in special schools.
I suppose as I begin to say goodbye to you this evening, Katlego, do you feel that anything is going to change for these 900 learners and the matric learners at Lwaphungu Secondary School in Musina? Is anything going to change before the end of the year, do you feel?
We hope so. We are hopeful. I mean, we have further also written to the MEC herself. Hopefully, through the intervention of the South African Human Rights Commission, we can see mobile classes are being intervened. As I've mentioned, the department in the previous financial year failed to utilize their funds, and they must make sure that they procure mobile classes as soon as possible to address this, because in 2022, I mean, still really, we cannot be discussing issues whereby learners are writing their exams under the tree.
Absolutely. Perhaps I'll leave this as my last question, Katlego. Forgive me, I'm going to just squeeze one more question in. We haven't gotten any comment yet from the Limpopo Education Department. My team are trying to chase them down at the moment. What would you say to the Limpopo Education Department tonight if you had a chance?
I mean, I'm not surprised at all that you guys are failing to get a response from the department itself. The same department, the communication as well as the MEC of the Education Department, if you remember quite well, before this whole reshuffles that we've had in the province, she was an MEC of Transport and Community Safety. And as the Democratic Alliance, by then we had submitted more than 20 letters to her, written questions in the legislature, and she had not responded. We even went physically to her office to deliver those letters and questions, hoping that she will address issues of safety and transport in the province. And she failed, and luckily enough, she was saved by the reshuffle, and then she was taken to the Department of Education. So it is saddening that we still have MECs who do not want to be held accountable. They do not respond to the media. I mean, you guys are a way of communication to the citizens of Limpopo. And I think the lack of response from her and her department really show just where we are in the province in terms of addressing any issue. Hence why we have approached the South African Human Rights Commission, because every time we knock on her door, there is never a response to our letters or to our request for meetings. So that is why we have now approached the South African Human Rights Commission. One may ask, why have we written a letter? We have written so that we do not leave a room for her to have more excuses. That is the DA. We haven't approached her office. We have written yes, and that is why we have further taken it to the Human Rights Commission, learning from previous history dealing with MEC Lerole Ramakaya in the province.
Is there nothing the DA can do to fix this? Because while we're talking about MECs and education departments, the DA seems to have a fair idea of what's happening on the ground. You've even roped in the SAHRC. Is the DA not able to do something on the ground? It's not your problem. You haven't caused this particular issue. Is the DA doing something to help these pupils? Because in the end, that's what matters, the pupils.
Of course we are. I mean, we are assisting through
beyond writing a letter to the SAHRC, beyond writing a letter.
We are assisting through the South African Human Rights Commission. We are assisting during committee meeting to present proposals to the department in ways that they can address the backlog and infrastructure issue in the province. And one might say we are forever approaching Human Rights Commission and writing letters. It is because we are not yet fully in government. And that is why we always encourage people to vote for the Democratic Alliance, because once we are in government, we will act beyond writing letters and approaching the Human Rights Commission. We would just implement when we had that department.
I appreciate the time this evening. Some 900 learners at Lwaphungu Secondary School outside Musina are writing their exams and studying under the trees. Katlego Suzan Phala, thank you very much for joining us this evening as well. As she logs off Zoom for the evening, you can imagine the stress those pupils are under. SAHRC has been written to by the Democratic Alliance. We will try and see if we can't follow up with them. I want to reiterate again that we are trying to make contact with the Limpopo Education Department. As of yet, it has not been successful.